Hello, this is Mike Knudstrup, and right now we're talking about culture and organizational culture. The concepts come from Robbins and Coulter textbook on principles of management. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about top management who affects culture, a little bit about how culture is determined, things like how does culture get to be homogeneous or heterogeneous in organizations, and how attraction, selection, and attrition fit into culture, and then how employees are socialized into culture through stories, rituals, symbols, and language. All right, so how much influence do managers have on a culture? The Omnipotent view of management says that managers have a lot to say with what happens with the company and their culture. The managers basically set the direction, or the top leaders, and then the rest of the organization follows. We can probably all think of famous people, maybe like Steve Jobs of Apple, who get a lot of credit for how their companies have done. And that's the Omnipotent view of management. Symbolic view of management says, well, yes, we'll give them some due, but really top leaders, CEOs and the like, they're figureheads, that we can look to and point to, and it makes it easy. But there are a lot of things outside the managers or leaders' control, for example, like the economy, or even like the weather. So how much is true? Well, you can decide for yourself, but we do give managers at least some impact, or give them some due when it comes to deciding what a culture is in an organization. Here's a little bit of a cultural model of how an organization's culture is formed. All right, and probably I need to back up just a little bit, and say, what is culture? All right, culture is generally assumed to be the visible part of culture, or like the behaviors. All right, I know my writing needs a little bit of work there. Behaviors of culture, and then underlying that are values, attitudes, and beliefs that drive culture. Okay, this is kind of the hidden. This is the observed, like behaviors and material symbols. All right. So a lot of times maybe we don't understand the behavior, but if we get at the values, attitudes, and beliefs, then it makes more sense. For example, the Japanese are really good with quality. Americans have tried their darndest to copy it, maybe with some success, but not to the same extent that the Japanese were, like in vehicles and that kind of thing. And one reason might be is that Japan is a very dense island. People, wherever they are, they have to stay there the rest of their lives. And so, unlike America, where you can just move or throw it away, you've got to stay there and prove it. So quality has been really important. Anyway, that's culture. How is culture formed? Well, first it's the founders, the people who establish it. It's also set by attraction, selection, and attrition. People similar to a culture are attracted to it. Risk takers are attracted to skydiving. Conservative people might be attracted to banking. A company also tries to select people who fit the culture. All right. If you're a big risk taker, high roller, a bank might kind of sort you out and not want to keep you. But maybe investment banking, that might work. But traditional savings and loans, that type of thing, no. If you don't fit, we have attrition. All right. Eventually you figure it out, or they figure it out, and you attrit, or you leave the organization. So this tends to create a culture that is more similar, or homogeneous even, maybe than when they started. As we move along here, top management in their day-to-day operations and planning, they and co-workers try to socialize workers further into knowing the culture. All right. So the end result is we tend to have a culture that is fairly homogeneous. I know you can't read that very well. Homogeneous. All right, and I hope I spelled that correctly. All right. So how are employees socialized in the culture? How do they learn? All right, they have stories that they tell. They have rituals that they go through, meetings or whatever. They have symbols that they put up, statues and whatnot. And they often have a certain language that helps you learn the culture. I have a couple pictures here that maybe we can talk about to give us an idea about how people learn culture. All right. Okay, so many of us have probably played sports. You probably can think of some stories that you have that help embrace the culture. As a football player, so some of the stories used to have maybe are a good comeback. Comeback wins. That help illustrate perseverance, rituals of pre-game rituals, whatever they might be, stretching, putting on your pads in a certain manner, a certain order. The symbols that they use, maybe even the symbols that you wear, okay, for your high school team, and then a certain language that you might share, or that you might use to help you understand, to help reinforce your culture. Big hits, big wins, that sort of thing. Okay, and one more here I want to talk about stories, rituals, symbols, and language is the business person. Okay, stories that a business person might share. What do you think? Like the big business deal that they made. All right, the rituals. Okay, meetings being like a ritual that helps to reinforce the culture. What symbols? What symbols are important in business? Maybe like having a corner office, an office with a view of the river. An oak desk, maybe some Employee of the Month awards, something like that. All right, Employee of the Month being maybe even type of language too that reinforces a culture of achievement. Other languages of business, being like profit and loss and that sort of thing.